Most people think power is loud. They think it lives in the comeback, in the raised voice, in the perfect response delivered at the perfect moment. But the truth is darker than that. The moment someone can control your reaction, they have already stepped inside your mind. They may never touch your body, your money, or your future, and still they can own your day, disturb your peace, and redirect the course of your life with nothing more than a word. That is how deeply most people are controlled without ever realizing it. Not by chains, not by force, but by emotional dependence. A comment changes their mood. Disrespect ruins their focus. Rejection poisons their confidence. Someone looks at them the wrong way, ignores them, doubts them, laughs at them, and suddenly their inner world is no longer theirs. Their thoughts are no longer moving in the direction of purpose. Their energy is no longer serving growth. It is serving the wound. And that is the hidden tragedy of reaction. It feels justified in the moment. It feels like self-defense. It feels like dignity. But most of the time, it is not strength. It is surrender in disguise. You are not choosing your state. You are letting the world choose it for you. You are handing your nervous system to people who did not earn access to it, and then calling that passion, honesty, or being real. But there is nothing real about losing yourself every time something external touches your ego. The painful part is that many men build their identity around this. They think being intense means being strong. They think reacting quickly proves confidence. They think rage is presence, defensiveness is self-respect, and emotional impulsiveness is authenticity. But if your peace can be taken that easily, then it was never peace. If your sense of self collapses every time the world presses on it, then it was never stable. It was only noise hiding weakness. The world trains you into this weakness from the beginning. It teaches you to perform, to defend your image, to answer everything, to explain yourself, to prove you matter. You learn very early that attention feels like survival, validation feels like oxygen, being misunderstood feels unbearable. And because of that, you start living from the outside in. Your mind becomes a mirror for other people's behavior. When they approve, you rise. When they withdraw, you shrink. When they provoke, you explode. In that condition, you may still function, still work, still speak, still chase goals, but deep down, you are being governed by something fragile and exhausting, the need to remain psychologically untouched by a world that was never designed to treat you gently. This is why so many people feel tired without understanding why. They think they need rest, but often what they really need is distance from reactivity. They are not only carrying their own problems, they are carrying every insult, every comparison, every perceived slight, every unresolved conversation, every moment where their pride was bruised. Their attention is scattered across dozens of invisible battles. They are mentally bleeding into everything. And because the bleeding is internal, no one sees it. They just call it stress, overthinking, anger, or a bad mood. But beneath all of that is a deeper issue. They have never learned how to remain sovereign in the presence of discomfort. When you stop reacting, the first thing that changes is not the world. It is your relationship to it. You begin to see how much of your suffering was not created by events, but by your constant psychological participation in them. You see how often you intensified pain by replaying it, how often you gave importance to people who were too small to deserve that much space in your mind. You begin to understand that silence is not passivity. It is filtration. It is the refusal to let everything enter you. That realization changes something fundamental. You stop treating every emotional impulse like an order. You start seeing it for what it is, a signal, not a command. Anger rises, but you do not become it. Shame appears, but you do not bow to it. Someone disrespects you, and for the first time you notice the old urge to prove yourself without automatically obeying it. In that pause, something almost sacred appears: space. And inside that space, you meet a version of yourself the world cannot easily manipulate. This is where real self-respect begins. Not when everyone admires you, not when no one crosses you, not when life becomes smooth. It begins when you realize you do not have to attend every emotional fire that is lit around you. You do not have to answer every provocation. You do not have to turn every wound into a performance. There is a deeper dignity in restraint than in expression. There is more strength in composure than in retaliation. And there is more power in being difficult to disturb than in being impressive for a moment. But this path is uncomfortable, because when you stop reacting, you also stop receiving the strange rewards that reactivity used to give you. You stop getting the adrenaline of conflict. You stop feeding the ego with speeches inside your head. You stop pretending that every battle is meaningful. At first, that can feel empty, even lonely, because many people have built their personality on reaction. Without it, they are forced to sit with themselves, forced to face what is underneath the anger, underneath the constant need to answer back, underneath the hunger to be seen correctly. And what is often underneath is pain, old humiliation, hidden insecurity, grief, fear of insignificance, fear of being powerless, fear that if they do not react, they do not exist. That is why emotional discipline is not a shallow trick. It is a confrontation with the self. It is where masculine strength stops being performance and becomes character. Anyone can look dangerous when angry. Anyone can dominate a room for 10 seconds. Anyone can create noise. But the man who can stay clear when disrespected, steady when rejected, and inwardly ordered when chaos is offered to him like bait, that man is different. He is no longer available for cheap control. He does not give strangers access to his center. And once that happens, everything really does begin to change. Your attention returns to you. Your days stop being hijacked by meaningless people and meaningless friction. Your energy begins to gather instead of leak. You think more clearly. You speak less, but with more weight. Your boundaries stop sounding like arguments and start feeling like facts. You no longer chase closure from people who enjoy confusion. You no longer explain your worth to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer need every injustice to end in your favor in order to remain at peace. Peace stops being a reward the world gives you and becomes a standard you protect. What is strange is that others feel this before you fully understand it yourself. People can sense when they no longer have easy access to your emotions. The manipulative become frustrated. The disrespectful become uncertain. The chaotic stop finding comfort in your instability because you are no longer unstable for them. Your silence starts to mean something. Your absence from unnecessary conflict starts to carry force. Not because silence is magical, but because self-command is rare. Most people are still available for purchase at the price of a trigger, and this is not just about dealing with others. It is also about the war within. Because the hardest provocations are not always external. Sometimes the voice that tries hardest to control you is your own, the memory that keeps replaying, the shame that keeps speaking, the regret that keeps dragging your attention backward, the fear that keeps telling you to defend yourself against ghosts. If you react to every thought the way you react to every insult, your inner life becomes a battlefield with no end. So this discipline must go deeper. You must learn not only to stop reacting to people, but to stop reacting to every storm inside your own mind. That is where a different kind of freedom begins. You realize you are not obligated to attend every inner disturbance. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves action. Not every memory deserves another hour of your life. You begin to hold your inner world the way a strong man holds a line under pressure, with steadiness, with patience, with refusal to abandon his post. That does not make you numb. It makes you trustworthy to yourself. And in time, this changes the shape of your life. Because a man who no longer reacts blindly becomes capable of something rare: direction. He stops wasting years in circles created by ego and emotional noise. He becomes more selective with people, more deliberate with speech, more protective of attention, more loyal to what actually matters. He sees time differently. He understands that life is too short to keep donating his mind to insults, distractions, and useless wars. One day this will all end. The body, the pride, the audience, the conflict, the waiting, the story. And when that day comes, none of the moments where you proved yourself to fools will matter. What will matter is whether you belonged to yourself. That is the final truth hidden inside silence. When you stop reacting, you do not become smaller. You become harder to own. You become less available to chaos, less vulnerable to manipulation, less willing to let the world write on your nervous system whenever it pleases. You begin to carry a quiet that is not emptiness, but command. A quiet that says, "My mind is not public property. My peace is not negotiable. My energy will not be spent wherever friction appears." And once you learn that, the world does not necessarily become kinder. People do not suddenly become wiser. Life does not stop testing you, but your interior changes. The old doors remain closed. The old hooks stop catching. The old provocations lose their teeth. And in that inner shift, something powerful is born. Not performance, not image, not borrowed confidence, something better. A man who cannot be easily moved from himself. That is why when you stop reacting, everything changes. Not because the world changes first, but because for the first time, it no longer has the same access to you. And there is almost nothing more dangerous, more peaceful, or more free than a person who has learned that the deepest form of power is not in forcing the world to behave differently, but in refusing to let it rule the kingdom within.